What is up, everyone? This is Ronnie, your host of the Ronnie Asani Show. My number one goal in this show is to bring you some of the most amazing and accomplished individuals in the business world to share with you some real, raw, and authentic business insights. We sit down and talk in a casual setting, nothing too serious, yet we unpack some of the most incredible ideas, concepts, and best practices. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh, and don't forget to share the love. Like, share, and subscribe. Gracias, amigos. What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ronnie Asani Show. Today's episode, I'm joined by Jessica Walsh, co-founder at Remote Social. Jessica spent the last 15 years working with startups, media, commercial, and NGO sectors. She is now leading and helping Remote Social along with two other co-founders. Remote Social is a platform that allows teams and businesses find, schedule, and host fun team activities. In this episode, we sit down and talk about what they've been up to and where they're headed in the next 5 years. We're live. Jessica, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. Co-founder of Remote Social.
Yes, I am.
Which is an incredible concept. And I'm very excited to see what you guys are going to be doing in the next two to 3, 4 years. A lot of times you start seeing businesses that like startups that make leaps and bounds a lot quicker than you think. You know, maybe 6 months down the road, you're in a completely different place. So I'm very excited, and thanks for coming. I guess we can start with where the idea came from.
Absolutely. So the original idea for Remote Social was born from an experience that my co-founder Mike had. He has worked in a range of really big established startups, including Atlassian and a couple in the US.
Yeah.
And he's experienced working both remotely and in an environment where co-workers work really closely together. And Atlassian, for example, they play a lot of board games at lunchtime. And I think that seeded an idea a few years ago for him that playing with colleagues really can have a very, very bonding effect on teams. He then went to work for a fully distributed business and experienced firsthand how difficult it is for remote teams to create that same sense of bonding and engagement. And so I guess that's the seed of the idea for him. And he started working on it actively as a product once COVID hit and he was working from home. So it's kind of crystallized and evolved a bit from them, but that was the genesis of the idea.
Right.
And I myself have worked in both remote and hybrid environments as well as fully co-located. So when we started working together, the three of us, Gerardo is our third co-founder, we all had varying levels of exposure to the same problem, which is that if you're not sitting side by side with your colleagues every single day, it really requires a much more thoughtful and considerate way of how you build those relationships. And that's what Remote Social is born from. Yeah,
and I guess, you know, we sometimes underestimate the value that you get from proximity when it comes to work. This year has been kind of challenging, and a lot of people couldn't work close to each other. But there's something about the physical distance, like, you know, being around each other, being able to go into a meeting room and brainstorm, the energy that some people bring to the place. Some people are naturally, you know, very high energy, motivated, you know, bring a lot of cool energy to wherever they go. So that's one of the most important things about being able to work around each other.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think there are different types of people get different types of kind of energy and motivation from the people that they work with. I think the hybrid and remote environment can be quite good for people who are a little bit more introverted. For people who are extroverted, that kind of day-to-day contact can be more important. But I guess the flip side to having to being kind of co-located with your co-workers on a day-to-day basis is that what we're headed into now, we have very strong conviction, and that's been borne out by every business that we've spoken to from large to small, is that we're heading into a permanent hybrid scenario where you'll have people coming into the office a couple of days a week and you'll have people working from home a couple of days a week. And you may have instances where you never cross paths with someone who is really, really important for you to have a strong relationship with. And so it's really important for businesses to start thinking about what tools they're going to implement to ensure that strong relationships are built between people and across the organization when they may be ships in the night in terms of their days coming into the office.
I like the slogan. I was on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn page, and so it's the basically a fun way to what was it? Help me out with the slogan. It was a fun way to bring teams together, something to that effect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're building with the remote social platform is the place where fun happens, where remote and hybrid teams can come together to bond over games and shared experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I understand that you guys are in the process of doing the beta version and going live. Is 2021 about like being 100% live and onboarding as many customers as possible? How do you envision 2021 for the business and where you guys are headed?
Yeah, so as you correctly pointed out, we've launched our MVP, we've tested it with some global teams, we've iterated on that, and we're now in a closed beta with something that's much closer to the vision for our product. Obviously, being so early stage, there's still a ways to go, and we're very ambitious and a little bit impatient to kind of keep iterating and get to kind of executing on our ultimate vision. But I guess, a very important part of that process is being really considered in the way you onboard new customers, hear their feedback, understand whether it's kind of meeting their pain points and making sure that you're really delivering a product that's needed by your customers. So we're being quite deliberate about how we onboard customers to the closed beta stage that we've just launched now, and making sure that we take the time to onboard people in a considered way, build very close relationships with those early customers. And over time, obviously, we'll be much more focused on scaling those kind of customer onboardings. For now, we're bringing in trusted customers and working closely with them to help us kind of iterate and get honest feedback on the product. 2021 certainly will, we hope, be a year of significant growth for us. We've had incredible interest in the product, and the caliber of businesses and teams that have reached out to express interest in using it within their organizations has really been mind-blowing. So we feel incredibly fortunate, and we're looking forward to onboarding those businesses and teams to the product in due course.
That's awesome. You touched on impatience, and I think that's one of the common things for a lot of entrepreneurs and people that are starting a new business. You want to see it succeed ASAP. And the downside to that sometimes is you don't take the right steps or the necessary time to get enough feedback from customers, from all different parties to really, and it's also a balance between execution and perfection, right? It's always the balance between that. And I think it sounds like in your case, you guys are taking this journey step by step, making sure, like you said, onboarding customers that you already know, people that you're familiar with, that will give you some honest feedback before you go to the rest of the world and say, hey, come on board.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. There definitely is a balance between needing to execute and wanting to deliver a perfect product.
Yeah,
I guess there are a couple of things in there. We are very fortunate that one of our co-founders has had years of experience delivering world-class products for some of the best organizations in a product manager role. And so he is very laser focused on making sure that we onboard customers in the right way and that we have that close relationship with our customers from day one. So I think that that's a real benefit to have that experience in the team, and he has a lot of experience working directly with customers, and so we're definitely taking advantage of that expertise. I think we're all recovering perfectionists in our own way, but you really cannot afford in building a a product like this, to build it in isolation without speaking to customers. And in order to get honest feedback from customers, you have to put something out there and give them something to play with and give them something to provide feedback on. So there definitely is a balance between providing something that's good enough that it hits the spot and not waiting for too long by trying to deliver something that is ultimately kind of an illusion of perfection, because unless you put something out there, you just won't know whether it's meeting your customers' needs.
Yeah. I mean, if you put out something that's not good enough, it will backfire, right? You'll start getting bad reviews, talking about any product in the world. And then if you put something, if you try to perfect it, it's a major opportunity cost, because in that time frame you could have gained traction by bringing customers on. And there is no science, there is no I guess blueprint on how much you have to have before going to market, right? So I think or maybe there is, I'm not aware of. So it comes down to what the founders and the team really feel, and I guess that's comes down to a lot of internal conversations and interactions. Are we ready or not?
Yeah, and I guess that's why we're being quite deliberate about the way we onboard customers, because obviously we want to get that honest feedback. We don't want to wait too long.
Yeah.
And there definitely is, particularly in the space that we're building in, there definitely is a real importance. Like, speed to market is incredibly important. So we're weighing all of those things up and making sure that we're shipping at the right time, onboarding the right customers, making sure that we're really careful about and considered about the way we get and act on feedback. And that, as you point out, is a balancing act.
Yeah. Are you before we go to a few other points, what is your day-to-day, I guess, role or activities? What are you focusing on being one of the co-founders in the business? Is it more on the commercial side or product development side? And a lot of times in startups, everyone is doing 10,000 things. So.
Well, yeah, there definitely are no 2 days that are the same at the moment. I think one of the things that's amazing about having a 3-person team with very differentiated skill sets is that Mike brings really strong product management expertise. So on the design, the product management, and the technology side, that's clearly his area of expertise. So he's owning that. We have some developers that are working alongside him as we seek to kind of execute on the product vision and do that in a timely fashion. So they're working alongside and reporting to Mike. Gerardo is a really experienced marketer, so he's worked with Adobe, Google, Mindbody, and he's had a lot of experience in both B2B and B2C marketing.
Awesome.
So it makes a lot of sense that he focuses on the marketing side of things. And I am doing quite a bit of business development, hiring a lot of the fundraising conversations, and also building out the experience marketplace that will sit alongside the games offering on remote social. I think one thing that's great is that we're all really collaborative. So if there's something that doesn't fit within someone's particular area of expertise, then we've become pretty good at sort of picking up balls if it doesn't naturally fit in any one of our areas. And that's working quite well. I haven't had the experience of working in a 3-person co-founding team before, but it's working really well, and I think it is enabling us to go a bit faster than we would be able to if we were 2.
Yeah. I mean, 1 founder is always quite tough, very, very tough. 2 co-founders is pretty common, and 3 is a little bit uncommon, but it could be the new trend. It could be that, 3 people starting something together that is, and with a lot of complexity that you have today, it makes a lot of sense to have, 3 people in different 3 areas that kind of work together. Is remote social focusing on PR as part of like the marketing strategy?
We will do some PR at some point. It's not an immediate focus. I guess our marketing activities will be designed to sit kind of alongside where our product is at. And it doesn't make sense for us to do a huge amount of PR now. Obviously, we love the opportunity to talk about our product. So we are doing that as the opportunities arise, and it's great to be able to talk to people to get the product out there. We'll do more of that once we've got a product that's ready for kind of mass onboarding. But it's fantastic to have the opportunity to talk about the product so early now as well.
Yep. Cool. You touched on business development and hiring. How do you have a certain strategy? How have you been finding the process of, I'm not sure if your background has, part of your background entailed a lot of recruitment, because as a startup, your focus, I mean, look at it this way. If you're an organization of 5,000 people and you go on and you hire 5 more people, that's 1% of your workforce. Obviously, you always want to hire the best people, the best talent, the talent that fits the culture, brings the right values, etc., etc. When you are a startup, 5 people or 3 or 4 or whatever that number is could be as big as the current team. So that's 100% of your workforce. And so kind of curious how that experience is for you as you're going out trying to find the right people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really an interesting question. As you rightly point out, if we bring on, another full-time person, that person becomes 25% of our overall team.
Yeah.
And obviously that's really, really important from a cultural perspective. And I think it's very well documented that those early hires and the tone that you set within the business are really crucial to how the culture will play out over time. We're really focused on finding people that are strong cultural fits, and we have a very open communication style between the 3 of us on a co-founder level.
Yeah.
And I think any early employees that we bring in, we're looking for a level of kind of maturity and ability to be able to have strong kind of debate and conversations around the product and around the way we build those out. We also think that being, essentially at the end of the day, a culture tool, that we have to walk the walk. We will be working in a hybrid manner, and we will be setting the culture within our own business that we would like to see kind of promoted out there in the world. So I think it's really important for us to find people who are a really strong cultural fit. I think also something that I probably wasn't aware of up until kind of recently in a lot of the conversations that I've had is it's so important to find people that are not just right for you culturally, but right for the stage of the business that you're at. Because I think there are some people who are very, very experienced in their field, but maybe don't want to be as hands-on, speaking about developers, for example, maybe they don't want to be so hands-on, maybe they want to be a team lead. And there's opportunity within remote social for those people to grow into team lead roles. But right now we need people who are kind of hands-on on the tools.
Can get their hands dirty and just, keep going and put in the time and, be resourceful.
Yeah.
And not have to have an ability of, decision making is important as well. So, when you're in a big organization, decision making is a lot different, than a small team. Sometimes by virtue of not having enough time as co-founders, you want someone who can be, you can trust to make the right decisions and not have to come back to you on every single thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important that people can make decisions on their own, and also that people feel enabled within the organization, and it's certainly much easier when you're a 3-person organization than it is when you're a 300 or 3,000 person organization. But we really very much at this stage of the business want to create a culture where particularly for these early hires, people are willing to kind of engage in debate about the best way to build these things out.
Cool. Can I ask you to bring the mic a little bit closer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yep.
Good.
Awesome. So where do you guys, the 3 of the co-founders, where do you see the business? And I know that's probably kind of a tough question because a lot happens when you're in a startup stage in 6 months. But do you have a vision for the next 3 years? Where you see remote social in a certain space or at a certain level? Obviously, the numbers is a totally different ball game. But from a brand from a positioning perspective, seeing all the different marketplace in the landscape, is that something you give a lot of thought to and have a plan for, or is the focus more now on just getting this product to where it needs to be?
I mean, we're definitely very focused on the product, but I think we're watching the landscape, particularly given the space that we're in. The landscape is evolving really rapidly.
Yeah.
And the way organizations are planning for what the future looks like, how they build their teams and where people work from, it's evolving very, very fast. So obviously we're watching that really closely. We're trying not to be too long term about the way we think about it, because we have to first deliver our product and iterate on that as we go. But we see, very strong cases for a really powerful suite of integrations with other big products that are in the market already. Not specifically within our space, but there are lots of opportunities for really powerful integration so that we can be where teams are already. And in terms of where we see ourselves going in the next 3 to 5 years, we will be we are a global business from day one. There's no reason we can't support teams in Argentina and the UK and the US in the same way we support the early teams that we onboard in Australia. Some of those early customers that we're onboarding will already be global teams with offices in multiple locations. So we will be global from day one, and that's really exciting. Obviously, we are very ambitious, so we see strong potential for really significant growth. And I think the number and the type of businesses that have expressed interest in using the product is testament to how great the need is. So I think for us, it's like deliver version 1 of the product, still maintain an eye on what's coming over the horizon and where the really important and powerful partnerships will be, and then focus on onboarding and increasing the offering. Obviously, the initial offering that we're going to be delivering within the remote social platform will be just a fraction of what we will have in 3 to 5 years. And in 3 to 5 years, the product we think will be something where third-party developers will also be able to build on the platform, and it will be essentially a tool that provides a really diverse and nuanced suite of products that meet the needs of global, remote, and hybrid teams. And I think that will be something that's incredibly powerful.
So are you focusing on teams in the business world, corporate, etc.? Are you also focusing on people who are in different industries, for example, tourism or hospitality and all types of different sectors? Or are you focused more on companies that typically need to have an office, but also have people that are not in the office and whatnot?
I mean, we're sector agnostic, really, and industry agnostic. The tool will be just as easy to use for people within a SaaS business as they will within a telco or a hospitality business. I think what is true is that there are many use cases for a tool like the one that we're building, and that goes outside teams as well. What we're wanting to do is just make sure that we stay focused on what our core focus is for right now, and that is building a compelling product for teams. Our early, a lot of our early customers and where we see really strong potential, at least initially, is to work with technology and SaaS businesses. We've had a lot of interest already from businesses in that sector. They're known early adopters. They're good product people. They're able to give incredible feedback because, in a lot of cases, depending on what stage they're at, they've either been through it, at some stage, or they're going through it right now if they're still in the early stages. And we've had incredible conversations already with leaders within those businesses, and as well as with teams who we think can get a lot of value out of the product. So starting off with a focus on SaaS businesses, though that's not exclusive. And ultimately, we know that we can service businesses and teams in any industry. We also have spoken to educational institutions like universities about the way that they're adapting and what the future models of education might look like, and where a tool like this might sit for some of their cohorts, as well as people kind of coming to us and asking, is there any way that I could use this with my grandma who lives in the US? Or, so there are applications beyond the work and the education environment. We're just building the first version of the product with a focus on teams.
Yeah.
With the knowledge that, once we're ready, there's definite scope to expand beyond that.
Super cool. Have you thought about potential competition coming from companies that have massive foundation? For example, if LinkedIn comes tomorrow and says, okay, we see an opportunity here and they want to develop something, are you guys thinking about how much do you pay attention to competition? Because that's something I always talk to people about and also think myself about. There's a fine line between being obsessed with the competition and being aware and using that awareness to strategize. And some businesses are not able to make that sort of distinguish between both, and they start to kind of drift in being obsessed with what competitors are doing and follow their league rather than trying to innovate in their own space. But also being aware of what the threats or, what the weaknesses are or what others can do that can potentially be a vulnerability to the business. So I'm kind of curious how much you pay attention to the competition landscape and is there anything you see that you want to adopt or concerns you or anything like that?
I mean, it's obviously a very rapidly evolving space. And so, yes, we are keeping an eye on other people that are coming into the market. At the same time, we don't want our product roadmap to be dictated by what other people are doing. So, I think it would be irresponsible not to look at what other products are out there and how they're differentiating themselves. But ultimately, we want to run our own race. I think as well, it's important to have an idea of how some of the bigger tools are evolving in order to be able to support remote and hybrid work. I think, to your point, something like Zoom and the introduction of their Zoom apps that has come up lately is potentially a really interesting case where you could look at it on the face of it and say, is that competitive with a platform like Remote Social? Well, I mean, there potentially could be a case to argue for that, but equally it could be a really powerful opportunity for an integration. So
Absolutely.
There are really powerful tools that are very well embedded within Teams. That includes the Atlassian suite, that includes Zoom and their kind of forthcoming apps marketplace, that includes Microsoft and their marketplace, where they're already really well established tools within businesses and teams, and there could be strong potential for integration and partnerships in those sorts of businesses.
So for anyone listening, perhaps we can just in a very simple way explain, if I'm a business and I have a few teams, how can I use Remote Social today?
So head to the website, which is remotesocial.io, and sign up for our closed beta.
Yep.
We'll be in touch when we're ready to onboard you. And to my point before about wanting to maintain close relationships with our customers, we're doing that via an initial onboarding call so that we make sure that we understand the team and that we understand what the pain points are and make sure that we can work closely with you. For the actual product, what it is essentially is you can log in once you are part of the beta. You will be able to log in, and from a single dashboard, you'll be able to select from a range of games and activities that you can do with your team that are schedulable and integrated with your existing suite of business tools. So you can go in, you can find a range of activities. Some are games, some are physical activity. Just actually launching today the first version of our physical challenge, which integrates with Slack and is a really fun way to keep teams kind of moving and kind of it has a really fun competitive sort of edge. And so you'll be able to go into the Remote Social hub and you'll be able to select from a growing range of activities. You'll be able to book them, schedule them, and kind of get people together without any of the administrative overhead of having to kind of search the internet for something fun to do for your Friday drinks, for example, or for games that might come before a meeting. And alongside those sort of self-serve games and activities, there is a marketplace of hosted experiences. So you might want to play trivia on a weekly basis with your team, and you can schedule that directly from our platform. You may, on a quarterly basis, want to book a really immersive sort of experience with an expert, and you'll be able to book that in the same way directly from the platform. You might want to book a weekly personal training session for your team, and all of that can be done from one place. So very simple in terms of the admin side, the scheduling, the billing, and ultimately we'll be able to provide a really compelling data set back to those businesses and teams. For team leaders, it really removes all the administrative overhead and the burden that comes with having to find all these things to do. And certainly we're hearing from teams of every business size that even in organizations that have amazing workplace kind of culture teams that look after the culture of the whole business, at the team level, the burden still falls on one person. And in some cases it is the team lead, and in other cases it's someone who just is really great at championing culture within that business, who now has a sort of an additional kind of part-time job on top of their full-time job of trying to find fun things to do with the team. So what we do is we remove all the burden and overhead from that person and bring it all together in one place, and you know, have this compelling range of games and activities for people to engage with their teammates.
And do you have to, because part of what you just described entails that you have to bring all these, and correct me if I'm wrong here, all these venues, all these different people who provide that sort of entertainment. It could also be just ideas, is that right? But it can be a venue or someone who brings that entertainment to the team. So you're also trying to onboard and bring the best people in that space to be the supply side for the demand side.
Yeah, so on the game side, we're building a range of games and activities that will be self-serve. So, for example, we've got our physical challenge, we've got our trivia, and that's a growing list of games that we're building. From the hosted experience marketplace side, yes, we are working with leading providers in their fields to deliver cooking classes, to deliver wine tastings, to deliver fitness experiences, do inspirational keynotes, speeches, and really that's a curated selection of experts, true experts in their field, curated specifically for teams.
Yeah. Do you have a process by which you select and refine who or what these hosted experiences are? Do people just, like, let's say I have an interesting experience that I want to be part of the platform. I go on remote social and I apply. Then there's a process by which or through which you, as remote social, go through to decide whether you want to accept that hosted experience or not.
Yeah, exactly. So we obviously need to make sure that we're putting forward the best experiences for teams. And there is an application process. A lot of, I guess as we touched on before, a lot of what I've been doing has been business development and outreach to leading providers in their fields. And you know, the response has been really fantastic. I think the idea has really resonated with these providers. And so then it's a question of then it's a question of bringing the kind of best people across a range of categories. And we're deciding on those categories in a range of ways. It's talking to actual teams and finding out what they're actively looking for, and then also looking for interesting things that they may not immediately have thought of. So I think it's a combination of having something that is sort of a well understood experience format, like a cooking class, for example, and then having some things that are a little bit more unusual.
Yeah. So I imagine that at this point in time, it's remote social reaching out to people who have interesting host experiences, and it could be both. But as you start to get traction, the tide will start to shift, where you get more interest, more people saying hey, and you get more applications. And I'm kind of wondering what the strategy is around making this scalable, since you mentioned earlier that, you're a global business, you're going to be in Argentina, UK, all that stuff. How do you become a global business and have something like that scalable and have minimal admin tasks associated?
Yeah, so eventually we'll productize the onboarding process so that there's an application process and a flow that can be
Yeah.
done directly from the website. But you're exactly right. As we start onboarding people in different languages, in different time
Yeah.
zones, there are natural kind of challenges that come along with that. And there are things that have to be worked out. I think that initially we will be able to do some of that from Australia, and eventually we'll probably have to have some sort of staff on the ground in those places.
Or would you look at automation and AI to, along with customer feedback, to say, okay, the threshold that we have in terms of who we accept, we're going to loosen that up a bit, so we get more people through the door, and minimize the admin. But as we get reviews and as we introduce more automation and perhaps some and I don't know what machine learning he can do. I'm sure it can. I haven't thought yet about that. But collecting data can be one way, I guess, to help you continuously refine the supply.
Absolutely. I think in any kind of peer-reviewed or customer-reviewed marketplace, you naturally will have a really clear feedback loop from your customers on what is working, and that's really applicable here. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think definitely in the early stages, there will be a human eye being cast over all the applications that we bring, applications for onboarding onto the marketplace, and over time we'll certainly seek to make efficiencies. But I think in any marketplace, the quality of your supply in the early days is incredibly important, because it will sort of dictate will dictate the way your customers respond to it. And having sort of explored marketplace concepts in the past, I know that the good supplier will look to see who's already on there. So if you have really high caliber providers already on there, then that will attract other high caliber providers. I think if you loosen up your requirements too fast and too widely, then that can have impacts on the quality of the offering. So we're really focused on delivering a really compelling, really quality offering that we can stand behind 100% to deliver amazing experiences for teams, and we'll grow that over time.
100% the right strategy, I think. Get the positive and right word of mouth out first before you start to open up. I'm curious if you see the business becoming an open market, for example, like Airbnb, where pretty much there's no barrier to entry, minimal, and letting people decide, and just becoming like this global, massive platform for team activities.
Yeah, so I think the way that Airbnb have productized the onboarding is really interesting, and I think that there's a lot we can learn from the way that they've productized the onboarding flow. I still think there's a quality check that happens on the back end at Airbnb with experiences, even though they've reached incredible scale and sort of global scale with their experiences. That I guess is in tandem with the growth they've experienced their homes offering. I think there still is a really strict quality check. Airbnb will not be afraid to turn off a listing that doesn't meet their quality requirements. So I think in that sense that we are pursuing a true kind of managed marketplace model, rather than having it sort of be a fully open marketplace where we don't put any checks and balances on the quality. I think just by nature of who we expect our customers to be, I think there will be requirements for us to be quite deliberate about the way we kind of curate that supply.
And do you see yourself growing horizontally? So rather than just focusing on providing team experiences and growing vertically in all the different markets, regional markets, also horizontally by bringing in other aspects that still kind of align with the vision, which is enabling teams and whatnot, that are not necessarily about what the product does now. So like, I'm not sure if you get my point.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
do. I mean, one of the things, for example, that is coming very clearly from the feedback that we're getting from team leaders and from organizations is a focus on wellness and on mental health. So
Right.
that may not have been something that we initially thought would be kind of top priority,
Mm.
but ways in which we can incorporate those sorts of considerations into the products we build, and rather than, our initial focus is on games and fun activities,
Yeah.
and definitely we're prioritizing fun because goodness knows there are enough collaboration tools out there now.
Yeah.
So we really are wanting to build a product, and we are building a product now that we are designing to be loved by teams. But certainly, to your point about kind of horizontal kind of and adjacent offerings, we do think that there will be scope to. We don't want to diversify too fast or stray too far from our initial and core focus. But certainly, we do think that there will be opportunities to expand into other areas. We do want to make sure that we keep that focus on teams and make sure that we keep coming back to what is our product about, what is our core focus, because I think that it is very easy in these early days to become too distracted about all the things you could possibly build. And we want to make sure that we stay focused.
Yep. Absolutely. Very interesting. And so in terms of fund raising and capital raising, how are you in the conversations? Are you looking at that in the next 12 months? Is there a plan along with the different milestones that Remote Social has in terms of, whether it's product milestones or customer onboarding milestones, and how all that ties with the investments or the funds or capital that you're looking to raise? Is that something that is a very close and a serious conversation happening these days?
Yeah, so we definitely will be looking to raise in the next 12 months, and we're actually talking to investors about coming on board now. We naturally, that needs to be tied to product goals, and we're focused in the first half of next year on iterating on the product that we've already delivered in our early beta, on onboarding new customers and on converting some of those customers to paid subscriptions. So that's the focus for the first half of next year. And yes, I mean, it is a very, we are having conversations with investors, and so far it's been incredibly constructive and some really strong relationships. I think with fundraising, naturally, it is a relationship building. Some of the conversations we're having with really respected and established VCs will probably take time to come to fruition. But I think for a team at our stage, it's really about meeting people, getting them to see sort of share our vision and see the steps that we're taking to execute on that. So I think it's fundraising naturally, and as I'm learning, is a very time consuming process. But we've already met some really incredible people and look forward to continuing those conversations in the year and years to come.
Shout out to any investor talking to Remote Social. Make sure you're giving them money. I'll chase you.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've been so incredibly impressed with is how generous people are with their time, their feedback, and their networks. I think that's true of the early investors that we have now, and it's true for people who probably make more sense a little bit further down the track in terms of the type of and stage of companies that they invest in. The level of feedback and the level of I guess just the approach with some of these investors I've been really, really impressed by.
Yeah. It's not the easiest conversation in general, asking for money.
No.
But I guess when you ask people for, advice on whether you're taking the right steps or not. Eventually, surely this will get you in the right place to earn and get that investment that you need. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, okay, we got everything in order, okay, and we pitch and we get it. It's a process, and you get feedback, and every single feedback will be a building block that will get you there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I had someone give me the advice earlier in the year that if you want money, ask for advice. And I don't, and she's someone whose opinion I really respect. While I don't know that it's necessarily that kind of black and white. Certainly, I think building that relationship, as you say, putting the building blocks down for building people's conviction in you as an entrepreneur, building conviction in your business, building conviction in your ability to execute. All of these are really important steps along the way. And I think when you go to people and ask for advice, that's a way to open up the conversation.
Cool. So I have a couple more questions. What from your journey so far, being an entrepreneur, embarking on that journey? I'm not sure if you've also been involved in other businesses as an entrepreneur or not. But what do you think are the 3 most important traits that you as an entrepreneur need to have to be, and I put quote unquote, be successful?
Well, I mean, I think I've still got a long way to go before I become quote unquote sort of successful according to my own sort of level of ambition of what I think I'd like to achieve in the future. I think people glamorize entrepreneurship, and really it's a hustle. So you need to be able to hustle, and you need to be able to put your head down and really focus. Embrace the journey, because as I was chatting to one of my co-founders about the other day, there'll be days when it seems like everything is amazing, and there'll be other days where you're tearing your hair out about one thing or another, and everything in between. I think grit is incredibly important, because to get through those days where it feels like everything's going wrong, then you need to be able to just like put your head down and continue to go for it. I think for me, marathon running has been a great trainer in that sense.
Are you a marathon runner?
I have run some marathons and some ultra marathons, and I love running. And that has been that's another thing that requires training and grit. And I think that's taught me a lot over the last 10 years about how to approach life. Actually, is like you need to have a goal, you need to have a plan for the steps that you're going to take in order to get you closer to that goal, and then you need to put your head down and you need to do the training. And I think it's no different with building a business. You need to have an idea of where you're going. You need to put the time and effort in to get to the intermediate goals along the way, and you need to sort of see the vision but be prepared to put your head down.
So that's your advice. It's not a sprint, folks, it's a marathon.
I also think looking after yourself is incredibly important. And that also ties into it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. For me, I have to exercise at least 3-4 times a week in order to maintain my energy and maintain my kind of equilibrium. So I think that the picture that people have in their head of the first year of a startup being 365 all-nighters are just not realistic. You can't make good decisions. You can't really continue at a constant, steady pace if you're not looking after yourself. So I would say looking after yourself, is equally important if you're going to get to the end of the marathon.
It's all about the mental health.
Yep, mental and physical.
Strong mind, strong body, strong mind.
Yep.
Cool. And I guess we can wrap up with any message you have for anyone out there, any group of people that you want to share something with.
Yeah, well, I guess we didn't really touch that much in the podcast about how my co-founders and I came together, but we met in a program called the Antler program. That is an early stage VC program, and Antler are currently recruiting for their next Sydney cohort, which will start in January 2021.
Awesome.
So big shout out to any entrepreneurs, current or aspiring.
Yep.
If you feel like you have the potential to build a business and you are looking for a co-founder, then going to antler.co and looking at what the program offers is a great idea. And I would love to give a special shout out to any female entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds.
Yep.
I think, certainly for female entrepreneurs, in very many cases, there's a lot of self-doubt about whether it's the right path. And Antler, for me, has been a great environment to build my next business in. For me, I knew that I had it in me, and I think, that's been a great environment.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely encourage female entrepreneurs to apply and take the first step on the journey.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Awesome.